správať, že odošla tento transmisný z regionu, že prípady na veľké terminálne náhľad, to boli záležitosti také špecializované kvestie, lepšie, viac, ale už označené, že to robila tá podľa toho Idríku.
Zoznam nehnutného kultúrneho dedičstva vznikol pred 14 rokmi a za ten čas boli zapísaní takmer 60 prvkov a aktivít. 80 až nultých rokoch. Pomáhajú za iné formy. Viete si stále, takže možno to nebude. Schválu také niečo. Online nám došiel tam Fecha, len Slovakov, od celého sveta, bezpečná. Hoci to tam technická, nejaká receptorka, nech sa páči. odtiaľ povedzme do Príryba až do Hrotu. Odčalová vás zoberie priamo do areálu, obrazne povedané priamo. Prevádzajú riaditeľ vodných elektrární, si pričerpáva s vodnej elektrární, Marian Velobrat.
Nám teda momentálne nie je naplnená úplne.
Áno, môže byť naplnená viac ako teraz. Teraz sme približne možno na nejakých 70% celková naplnenosť. Je 5,1 milióna metrov.
A už sa trošku zamýšľam, ako sme sa vyšli to vodom, viete, koľko ministerství?
Toto neviem, ale v rámci dolnej nádrže, v rámci celej elektrárne, spodnejšie miesta, vlastne 8 miesta, 230 metrov.
do závetria, alebo dokonca aj pod strechu, panelčík.
Úplne do teplné skôlne podobné na držu. Na stoiskom hrazu, dolné na držu. Takže taká.
Dole, ideme sa pozrieť, či mi prefakuje?
Môžeme sa pozrieť.
Na záber môže potôčiť, lebo teda toto potôčika má samozrejme ďaleko. To sú teda normálne veci.
To sú normálne veci, preto je tu pravidelná denná kontrola, kde tí hráči hrajú nejaký iný priesah. To je každodenne monitorovanie a ľudia sa nejaké udalosti.
Keď to hľadičky sú tu ako nejaký, pretože
to bola pastia, ktorú sa napísať vytvára to nejaké jasky. Jediné, čo bude ďalší 30 rokov.
teraz nás čaká zase cesta hore. To je dočované ako taký nejednoduchý už je z podzemia von, toto je jaskyne, nádherné. Nachádzame sa v takom reáli, dolej nádrže, lete. To musí byť krásne, takúčnice. Pozeráme sa na tvár. Vodu, to tam je to bude
privádzacie odborne.
WRMI, kde sa opäť dostaneme ja vám dojem, že sme opäť ešte nejakými schodmi dole.
Momentálne sme pri úlovom závere stroja číslo 2 a malý moment
ten moment bol taký sa minútu rozpráva.
Vytváral sa ventil odtoku na úlovom závere turbíny, nabehol tlak na odtoku, vytváral sa úlový záver turbíny, tá voda začala privádzať
teraz baví dole vy tomu hovorí nádačka, to je úrok turbínu, ktorú roztáča vydáva transmisor. Vy sa teraz prečo prídete?
Áno, vyberieme sa do výskupového tunelu, ktorý spája hornú a dolnú nádrž. Stojíme pred všetkým vystaním a teraz absolvujeme jazdu na hornú nádrž.
Hovorili ste, že všetkým výťaz, tak som si to predstavovala všechno, ale ten sklon je poriadny.
No, máme 45 sklon, tu sa niečo odradí, tu sa vybení hore. Takže to vlastne ten výťah.
Mám teda vstúpiť do toho výťaha od výťa, do toho na ne, teda hodnú nádrž. Dalo by sa tu aj sadnúť si, možno, že to aj využijeme, predsa len to je to právne, čo tu bude teda. Aby sme sa tu zmestili, ale aby ste mohli škutnúť správnu číslicu, teda tu asi je len jedna, hore a dole, nie?
Nie, na 4 stanice, to 0 na dolnej nádrži, horná je 4, kde ostatné 3 stanice slúžia práve zamestnancom hrázu a
peknej nadmorskej výške vďaka výťahu veľmi rýchlo. Asfaltová cesta sem vedie. Veľmi často ju využívajú cyklisti, turisti, ak sa nechcú duskať po asfalte takú diaľku. Sem dá vyšľúžiť spoza rohu. Máme pred sebou slovenčná neznámu a chodia cyklisti a turisti. Pán Dorobrat. My sa tu máme pred sebou v tej kopce.
strategické Omničák, Marami, Výstrát.
Vysoké Tatry, máme dnes šťastie, okolo celej hornej nádrže a zastavili sme aj pri panelenky, a to vlastne má takže kto chce vidieť konečne, do akej dolinky sa pozrie a na aké do kopu odtiaľto z západných hodov.
Tabule panoramatické Sitio 2, tu máme jednu s informáciami o elektrárni Čierny Vák a potom o okolitej prírode.
Urobili ste informačné tabule pre turistov, pre cyklistov. Aké máte tu skúsenosti? Naozaj je krásne počasie a dovolenkové obdobie alebo až ten víkend?
Turisti až tak neskôr a dneska sa otvárajú možnosti aj s ľuďom, ktorí si veľmi nasadili to fakt, že keď sú pekné slnečné dni, tu ľudia aj chodí. Už len doplním, že elektráren Čierny Vák je a je to naša hodná elektráren. preženiete z kary. Touto odľahčenou bodkou sa končí piatkový kránsky magazín. Pekný víkend želajú Romana Šundelíková zo zvukovej réžie, od mikrofónu Martin Haraj. Kontaktujte nás na Rádio Slovakia Internacionál STVR 01 8175 Bratislava, Slovensko, alebo e-mailom na rsi@slovak@stvr.sk. Počúvať nás môžete cez webovú stránku, satelit, krátke vlny a DAB+. Viac informácií na www.rsi.sk.
is WRMI, Okeechobee, Florida. Radio International. You can find out more about WRMI at our website, WRMI.net. WRMI.net. Go to the website and share your thoughts. This is RMI, Okeechobee, Florida. Radio
For Thursday, the 23rd of January, this is Frecuencia from Okeechobee.
This is RSI News.
Fico heads the EU Emergency Summit and signals plans to strengthen ties with Cuba. Slovakia and Czechia push for stronger V4 cooperation on EU foreign policy. And Slovak and education ministers to hold talks with Slovakia. Prime Minister suggested on Thursday the 20th of January to attend an extraordinary European Summit focused on transatlantic relations. The meeting, convened by European Council President Antonio Costa, was called, and in recent statements by U.S. President Donald Trump related to Greenland. Earlier the same day, Eton was Cuban Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Trade Minister Oscar Perez Olga Fraga in Bratislava and announced plans to visit Cuba in 2026. He said Perez more strongly into created by Cuba's reform measures, potentially accompanied by there are no single political issues between the two countries, and both sides are interested in developing pragmatic and mutually beneficial solutions. Agriculture Minister and his chief secretary Martin Kubica has voiced support for closer cooperation among agriculture ministers within the Visegrad Group. After talks in Abu Dhabi, they stressed the need to revise the future common agricultural policy after 2028, calling for higher funding for agriculture. Fecha warned that under current European Commission proposals, funding for Slovakia is cut by up to 2% and the payments and the full sector from the policy. Both ministers agreed on joint reinforced priorities, such as stronger budget, simplification and greater self-sufficiency, and discussed the impact of imports from third countries. Fecha called for stricter monitoring of such imports, equal EU standards, and creation of a special European fund to compensate farmers, food producers, and environment. Education Minister will meet with Czech counterpart Robert Plaga during Plaga's working visit to Slovakia on 22nd and 23rd of January. According to the Slovak Education Ministry, the talks will focus on exchanging best practices in key areas such as school networks, university funding, bans on mobile phones in schools, digitalization of education, and youth development. Vidar Milosin, founder of the Bratislava-based Danubiana Milosin Art Museum and major supporter of art, has died at the age of 83. The Dutch collector supported art projects in Slovakia from the 1990s, and between 1999 and 2016 played a key role in developing Danubiana, which he later donated to Slovakia and its artists. Under his leadership, the museum hosted some of the country's most prestigious modern art exhibitions, attracting more than 1 million visitors from Slovakia and abroad. Thanks to Milosin's international contacts, Danubiana was able to present works by world-renowned artists such as St. Francis, Karel Appel, and Magdalena Abba. The museum described Milosin as a person who distributed works whose works permanently shaped modern art.
Topical issues.
On the 21st of January, the broadcaster founded indicating that the long-line television phase may still end. According to publicly available information, CBR logos will be designed in a better CBR will be operating without a permanent summer of 2024, when lawmakers approved the dissolution of Celtic and President Peter Pellegrini signed legislation establishing the new institution. An earlier attempt to introduce a new logo for the Ministry of Justice is semi design, but these were ultimately not adopted by the CBR leadership. The legislation for logos are also editorial and station. This points to a clear structural and branding distinction within the institution, while SCBR has so far not commented publicly on the timeline for introducing the most complete set yet. Media.
My name is Martina Bereni-Vašinkovičová, and today I continue in my series marking the centenary of broadcasting in Slovakia. Radio or 100 years of radio is being by all the stages in this service.
Now, the different concept within Tate Modern, a concept that looks at how women are supposed to.
This Friday, and Jake and Stuart to start later on the ground exhibition of Okeechobee-based artist Maria Bartosova, which is one of the top works in 2022. Enjoy.
Thank you for listening to Radio Slovakia International.
Robot auta, ti na preplnených cestách aj tak. Pokud to pod vašimi tělami letele. Predstaviť ťa vyhadzuje hlučný klaxón a tvoje slabé srdce skoro prestalo biť. Ešte, že si priputaný čiernym pásom, ináč by si musel toho chlapíka zmiť, ale...
Czech-born artist who is living and working in Okeechobee, Slovakia, is presenting some of his sculptures to one of the viewers.
Represented in Tate Modern in London until April 2023. Given by artists, our gallerist Alison Booth, and curator Sarah Singing, respectively.
My name is Alison Booth. I have a gallery in London. I represent the I work with Maria's daughters, Anna Vodka and their curator, Gabriella Sanskova. I have worked with them for
was the thing that made you personally being interested in Maria Bartosova's work? What is the thing about her?
I have a gallery in London, but I work globally. I've been working for years. Like any great artist, it's about is peculiar and Maria's work, or Sheila Hick's work, or Hutchinson's work, or even, Robert Mapplethorpe, the photographer's work. When I come across an artist who has a unique language which speaks to me, because ultimately it's all about stuff. Rarely do I find it, and when I do, and in the case of Maria, I certainly, it becomes a sort of vocation, embracing the work, and also to help the family, to help Maria's legacy, ensure that it does get the recognition it should do, even if Maria did not have that in her lifetime, and most importantly, that her legacy is understood and it endures.
You said that Maria the fact that she was an artist and sculptor.
I'm not sculptress meant that she was overlooked. I think it's more a case of the context in which she was working. She was a woman. I don't think artists were at that point in Slovakia. Her husband, also an artist, was most definitely focused upon over her. Her work is most definitely, it's important. It's not just part of a community of artists making work, which the majority of those artists were doing. And their work would not necessarily be internationally relevant, but more important, just be relevant in a decade apart. And Maria, who died in 1996, is not here to witness the response to her work and the knowledge of her work throughout the world that is now occurring. But the great thing is that they are responsible for nurturing her work and being very clear that national legacy for the next person who is come along to ensure that it's achieved.
Later of the Okeechobee exhibition, which recently opened. So Maria Butterfield is a really incredible and innovative sculptor who used Okeechobee artist and therefore was our main we wanted to explore her approach and her position as, an innovative artist who is left alone. When we originally conceived the exhibition, we wanted this the EY exhibition, that was due to take place in 2020, and those artists were touring and of course, because of the pandemic, we had to slow down both exhibitions. So Rodin took place in 2021, and now Maria Butterfield took place in 2022. Audiences who are able to see the Rodin, we hope will be able to return and look at another fantastic sculpture of how she approached the movement. But her work also takes place now alongside two other very radical sculptors, both women artists, that's made it to put woven textiles out into space. And Chilean artist Julia Eton, in a way, artistic concept within Tate Modern that looks at how women being interested in her work. Exhibition, there's really a sense of the kind of intimacy and personality that comes through in her work, but also to this manifestation of the technique. So the
combination of that, but also he was interested in connectedness between time and the living world. So those aspects of it were really important.
While looking at these pictures of the exhibition in a small room, touch and embrace objects so smooth and round shaped, many of them. However, it did not touch. On the other hand, it is very fragile and not reduced to touching them in order not to break them or do them any harm. Just with an editorial intention for this exhibition.
This remarkable 30-year career where she was studying in the department of ceramics, and she created her life forms. Her partner there, who was also a physicist, and they got moved to what's now Slovakia, settling in the industrial cities. And so what she wanted to look at was how the deep day inflection because she moved in away from the transport into the strategic environment, and it was a representation from her lived experience, so her experience as a mother, who was looking after the family, and juggling responsibility, and provided an income. That allowed her to create this very personal and sensual business. So the exhibition traces this 30 years and a full and bursting and interesting capturing fleeting moments in solid form, for example, or red, which is kind of recreate in time, and yet the series was kind of constant transformation. Moved to her later works in the 80s, which use very different techniques, and they have a very different aesthetic. So, compared to Fecha, she used a technique later on, and she referred to as matrix. So she used very innovative techniques throughout her life. Early on, she became stimulated shaping, in which she would pour the plaster into balloons or condoms to make them very cool and cabin-feeling. Later in her career, she used metacasting to create a very different, very clean, very fragile world. So we wanted to reveal these different techniques that she used, her relationship to the living world and the life cycle, and especially the female body, motherhood, sexuality and intimacy. So I think her works are very tactile, they have a very haptic quality, and this was intentionally so because she created works in the 60s and 70s which were multi-part, interlocking objects. She referred to some of them as folders or jigsaws. And she wanted to allow people to interact with the works and to have a sort of aesthetic imagination through touch. And she worked with art historian and photographer Gabrielle Claudette to allow her work to be used in workshops for blind and partially sighted children. And she referred to them as kind of didactic aids or toys. And these workshops took place in Kōjice in 1976 and 83, which I think was quite forward-thinking at the time. And I have to just say, it was very interesting in seeing the exhibition, because people who were allowed to touch and handle the work were the art handlers, the installation team, who were brilliant.
So the curators are not allowed to touch the object. So I felt very jealous of their, envious that they were able to handle them. But what we do have in the exhibition, because the sculptures are too fragile to touch, and they need to be preserved for future generations. And of course they come from different collections, from private collections and from institutional collections. So they're no longer objects that can be handled. But we have a series of really incredible black and white photographs by Gabrielle Claudette of the workshop with the young children who are engaging with her sculptures. And it's really lovely to see, this very joyful engagement with the sculptures. And she wanted, in a way, she wanted to evoke emotional responses. And she talked about, angular, inorganic shapes giving the impression of coldness, or rounded shapes appearing warm. And she says in a quote, when touching, they can feel the feeling of a gentle caress, maybe even an erotic embrace. So, this haptic quality is clearly very important for her.
Did you have a chance to touch any of her objects? I know that you've been to Slovakia, you've been to Košice, weren't you?
Yeah, we had some fantastic research trips with colleagues here to visit the daughters who managed the estate of Maria Bartoszova. And it was really wonderful to see many of the works in and around what used to be her studio space. I have to say that no, I didn't personally touch them, but it was incredible. It was a kind of treasure trove to see archival photographs and the artist sketches and boxes of works which have been so, beautifully and carefully preserved. And we worked closely with Gabriela Garlascoyova, who is the curator of the archive of Maria Bartoszova, and who has recently, with the estate, completed the artist catalogue resume. So it was published in Slovak in last year, 2021, and the English edition has just come out to coincide with Tate's exhibition. So there's really been some very important research that Gabriela has been carrying out in relation to the artist's work.
We're talking about tactile and haptic qualities of her statues, but we're talking about them in radio with the basic means of expression being sound. When talking about Maria Bartoszova's sculpture and the current exhibition at Tate Modern, what sound would represent her work that we could possibly use in this interview? There is a few drops, so I can hear it right now, but I haven't been to the exhibition. You made the exhibition, so I would like to ask you kindly for your personal sound.
She was very interested in nature and surrounded herself by nature. And as a young child, she would go for walks along the river Vlata, which flows through Prague. And later, when she moved to Katowice, she used to make sketches, but also take photographs of her walks along the river. Is it Hora?
Yes, Hora.
How do you pronounce it? Hora.
Yes.
And a number of her works were part of a series that was referred to as Melting Snow. And you can see in one of the pieces a tree branch embedded into a huge, like 2 meter high relief made from plaster. She also created a number of public fountains, one for a school for disabled children and other fountains in spaces. So certainly water and water is a life is important to her. I imagine, yes, something to do with water. Of course, she also really liked music herself. She listened to a lot of classical music and went to concerts and opera and theatre. She played the piano. So, yeah.
You know, in these times we live in, it brings some kind of peace. I can't name it otherwise. This sound you added to this interview, and also the white color of the pasta, and these gravitating shades. Yeah, a piece.
And of course, some of her sculptures remain in situ in Kħiġse. Some of her public artwork, like the piece Metamorphosis at the Kħiġse Sanatorium. So I would encourage people to come to Tate Modern and, and also see Maria Bartosova's work alongside Magdalena Abramovich and Cecilia Steen. So it's an interesting time to look at women in sculpture.
Interviews and reports produced over the years by the TV station of Radio Slovakia International. In doing so, I'll be paying tribute to radio broadcasting, which first went on air regularly. And I hope you enjoy this little journey through time with me. The listeners, stay with us.
You've been listening to Radio Slovakia International on Frecuencia. All our contact info and social media info can be found on our website, enr.stdio.sk, or local selected Radio Slovakia International, STVR, 87755 Bratislava, Slovakia, or send us an email